Before this episode begins, just a quick reminder that we are not professionals in any way. The views, information or opinions expressed in this podcast are solely the views of the individuals involved and by no means represent absolute facts. Opinions expressed by the host and guests can change at any time. G'day listeners, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About It. We are your hosts, Jacob
and Josh.
And today we are going to be talking about a new topic, misleading headlines and wasted time. Just letting you guys know that we have some new equipment.
So with the Instagram post that we put up, that's the equipment we have now.
That's not the equipment we used last time. That's why it kind of sounded a bit far away. But yeah, this stuff is the shit.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, the setup we had before was pretty whack.
How you going?
So
you want to get started on the introduction and then we'll just...
So headlines these days have one job, to catch your attention. But at what cost? All of us are exposed to dozens, if not hundreds of different headlines every day on social media, TV, and all media we consume. But what about what's behind those headlines? What about the purpose of those headlines? And at what point does this attention game that the media companies play no longer benefit neither the consumer or the content they consist of? So, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Basically, what we want to talk about is because we've come across plenty of fucking headlines, especially on Snapchat.
Oh,
you see them pop up all the time. Like the other day, I was viewing it was like Lad Bible, and it said something about the Shang-Chi movie, and it was like, oh, Shang-Chi getting banned for racist character, and I was like, what? That was a really good movie. I'm not actually going to be sad that it's going to be banned. And I click on it and it was like China. I was like, okay,
yeah,
all right, just China. Thanks. You couldn't have put it in there, but I've clicked on it and you made money off my click. So
yeah.
Thanks.
Well, it was the same thing with the whole China banning video games.
Oh yeah.
They said everyone, video games banned for everyone, and then if you read the article, it was only for people under 18 and during the week, and they were limited to 3 hours during the week and they could do as much as they wanted on the weekends. And to be honest, that's not the worst idea.
And they were in China.
And yeah, it was China, it was in China, so it was
yeah, I mean they weren't technically lying. They were everybody in China.
Yeah, but that's it. It wasn't even everyone in China. It was everyone under the age of 18.
Yeah,
if you were over 18, it didn't affect you in any way, shape, or form. It was only children who had the law put upon them.
We're not going to lie. We're just not going to tell the truth either.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, they technically weren't lying. Video games were banned, but not for everyone.
Yeah.
So I think
I agree with you though. I mean, kids these days play a lot of video games. I personally can't sit there and play a lot of video games. I get bored.
I had a stage. I definitely had a stage.
You look like you had a stage.
No, I had a stage where I played, but it just gets to the point where you're just sitting there and you're fucking bored as shit. With a lot of these headlines, it's the whole, you look at it and it makes you go, oh, fuck. As if.
Yeah.
You click it or you share it or whatever. And a lot of these headlines, you read them, you just think to yourself, there's no fucking way. I remember I saw one that was halloumi is banned. I'm like, how are you banning an entire food? How do you cancel a food?
You just got Nazis walking into people that are just making it at home. Put that fucking halloumi down.
Fucking halloumi. Yeah, and it turned out that the trademark for halloumi had been patented or something, so it could only be called halloumi in the place where halloumi was invented. Yeah. So it wasn't that halloumi itself was banned, it's that the name halloumi, you'd need to get permission to use it. Yeah. It was what the fuck? And it was the same thing. It was no fucking way. And then once you read the article, you're disappointed as shit.
Yeah.
But it's the whole idea that these articles' headlines are so over the top, are so dramatic, that they make you feel something, and therefore you either want to click it or share it because you're like, well, other people need to hear about this. And my question is, with all of that, is it actually beneficial?
Yeah.
Because I don't see how that is beneficial. Well, actually, no. I see how it's beneficial for the company, but I don't see how it's beneficial for the consumer.
Yeah.
Who's taking in that media.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, you look at people that just read the headlines, and 59% of people will read the headline, will only read the headline without actually reading the article itself. There is a lot of information in that article that you're missing out on. so when you only share the headline, you're only getting a piece of the information that's in there and just a little bit of what the journalist or whoever wrote it thinks will sell as well. So, I mean, like, you're spreading bullshit for the sake of what?
Yeah, well, exactly. And the thing is, like, so you read the headline of an article and you either click it or you share it or whatever. But half the time, once you read the article, you got to think to yourself, would I have even been interested? If the headline actually related to the article or like honestly told what the main point of the article was, would I even click it in the first place? Would I even share it?
Well, half the time they're not even that important. They're not even that that's the thing. I mean, like, they've got to make money. They've got bills to pay. They've got employees to pay. So, I mean, like, something's got to sell. There's not always going to be an interesting story straight off the bat. I mean, like, then again, I mean, like, you look at coronavirus and when Trump was in presidency, there was so much fucking shit going on. It was just like, oh, whoa. And there still is shit going on because it fucking sells. Yeah. And, like, fear-mongering is far more effective than producing positive, enticing news.
Yeah, 100. I mean, when I was in sales, the one thing was like you always fear losing something. The emotion of fearing of losing something is greater than that of gaining something. Like, if you're put in a situation where there's a possibility you might gain something, but you might lose something as well. Well, obviously, you're going to be less inclined to be in that situation. Even if the thing you gain is a lot more, if there's a possibility you might lose something compared to a situation where you can only gain, but the gain might be like tiny compared to the gain you would have had while having the risk of losing something, people always pick the smaller gain because the fear of loss is stronger than that of like gaining. So like if I was to put you in a situation where I said, I get to flip a coin and if it lands on heads, I'll give you $100. But if it lands on tails, I'll take $100. But then if I was to put you in a situation, I say, I'll just give you $5. Which one of those would you rather?
Yeah, see that I'd just rather the $5.
Yeah, see, there you go. Yeah. Because you fear losing that $100. And it's the same thing with news. It's like, it's this fear that they get into and it's like, oh, fuck, like what if I don't know about something?
Yeah.
So I've got to find out. And then half the time you click on the article, you read it anyway, and there's nothing to be scared of.
Yeah.
Or, you know, there might be, but it's nowhere near that of the headline.
Yeah.
The headline is always a massive dramatization of what's in the article. And I think that starts to become a problem because you read so many headlines. And I've had conversations with people about certain subjects. And they've said to me, oh, well, have you read the headlines? And I'm like, yes. Yes, I have. I mean, everybody has. But the point is, you've got to read the articles because half the time the headlines are just there to make you go,
yeah.
But once you read the articles, you're like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of the time, like when like a headline pops up, even though like the headline actually like pulls me back into my seat, I'm like, oh shit. But I'm always just like, I got to find out more, and then I read the article, I'm like, wow. I just wasted so much energy getting worked up over this, and it's just like it's not even that big of a deal. I mean, like, it made one good point, and then the rest of it was, I'm going to go take a shit in the backyard.
I mean, yeah, it's... And look, there's a reason. I mean, there's got to be... obviously, there's got to be some incentive for them to do that.
Yeah.
Because if there wasn't, I mean, they wouldn't do it in the first place.
Yeah.
And for the most part, it's revenue.
Yeah.
So every time you click on one of those websites, they show you ads. And then they get paid for those ads.
Yeah.
So the more people that can click and view these ads, the more they get paid. I mean, you take Facebook, for example. I mean, you see a lot of fucking whack headlines on Facebook. And Facebook made $25.39 billion in advertisement revenue, which is up 46% from last year. And that was in their 2021 quarterly report. And you think to yourself, that's a fuck ton of money. And it's just off of people being compelled to keep looking through Facebook.
Yeah. And
seeing ads.
Without ads, what was it? It was like $497 million. That's nowhere near what they're fucking pulling out with advertisements.
Yeah,
I mean, like, it's quite literally, we've got the people. You just bring the goods.
Yeah, you bring the goods and give people reason to continue to look at the goods.
And also, I mean, like, the algorithms that go into, like, social media platforms these days, I mean, like, it quite literally just targets people that would benefit from their own situations with whatever is coming their way. I mean, like, whatever they choose to advertise, it kind of just goes directly to the people that it will most benefit.
Yeah, they're targeted advertising. Well, I think that's a reason that they're, like, especially Facebook are able to get such a large amount of money out of advertising, because when you sign up for a Facebook account, you give them your date of birth, you give them where you live, and you're constantly updating that information. Yeah. So then if I was, say for example, I was a real estate agent and I had a certain house that met a certain criteria of family or person, I could go to Facebook and I can get my ads sent to people that only fit that criteria. So if I was an advertising company, that's fucking awesome, because I can target literally just my target audience, that's a gold mine. So with that, you can make a fuck ton of money. Yeah. I mean, it's like one of the best marketing tools someone could use in terms of wanting to get customers.
Yeah.
But at what cost does that come?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're able to get, like you said, more in common with what you're trying to sell to the person that is willing to buy it, then that person's going to feel like they're appreciated. They feel like they're actually worth your time. And they're probably more enticed to actually buy it.
Yeah.
And it's like you've gone out of your way. I mean, like, oh, I can't say no now.
Yeah. And another thing with, like, a lot of the websites you click on, like with the articles and shit, it's all Google ad spaces.
Yeah. So
it's Google that actually runs the ads. And there are times where I'll have a conversation with someone about something, never type anything into my phone. No, I won't even touch my fucking phone while talking about a product. I'll talk about it. And then in every Google fucking ad that I have on, like, any Google space that there's an ad, it'll be that product. Yeah. And I'm like, what the fuck? Sometimes I swear to God, it's things I think about. I've thought about it. I don't know. Like, I'm like, I could do with one of those. And the next minute, boom, it's in my phone. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, flashlights. I was thinking about these.
Oh, damn. They know me too well. But no, the point is that a lot of these headlines, literally their only purpose is to drag you in and get you to click on the page so you get that money. I mean, Facebook runs, in 2017, they ran almost 20% of the entire internet's ads.
Fucking hell.
Of the entire internet. And that's a lot of money. That's a lot of people. That's just a lot of everything. I mean, Google in 2019 made $134.81 billion in advertising revenue.
I made that today.
But, like, my point is, it's a profitable business to get you to click on these things. But and the thing, like, when you're viewing these things, they're all quote unquote free.
Yeah.
But there is a cost to them. There is. I mean, sure, there's the cost of your time. So you click on it, that's a waste of your time. Well, I mean, maybe it's not a waste. But the point is, you use your time to go through it. But then also, there's a cost to how the information gets through to you.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are going to come up with ideas about situations based off of headlines.
Yeah.
And especially if different people are seeing different headlines, and these headlines are dramatized versions of what's happening, or sometimes not even accurate whatsoever. Yeah. I mean, with that whole China thing, it just wasn't accurate. No. Like, sure, video games were banned for people under 18 during the week. And even then, you were allowed 3 hours during the week.
Yeah.
And then on weekends, as much as you fucking want. How is that banned?
Yeah.
How is that? It's not even telling the truth.
Yeah, it's just being regulated.
It's just regulations on video games. It's not banned. But if you were to read just the titles, you'd say to yourself, well, you can't play video games in China anymore because everyone's been banned.
Yeah.
Whereas that is so far from the truth, it's not funny.
Yeah.
And you would find that out if you read the article.
Yeah, and, like, you look at what was happening with, like, and we're probably going to mention Trump a lot, because Trump is, like, a really good example for, like, how he was portrayed in, like, not only just the election, but throughout his whole presidency. I mean, like, that guy, I mean, I don't really use a lot of social media, but a lot of the things that were popping up on Instagram with people across the world, especially the people living in America, obviously, and then just, like, news articles and, like, on the news itself was, like, talking about Trump and, like, what he's doing that's bad. He didn't really do, like, a whole lot of the things that were bad. I mean, like, he made the country a lot of money, but the way the news was portraying it, it was just like, he's a fucking arsehole and he needs to get out.
Yeah.
But it's just like, there wasn't exactly a whole lot of things that bad to make him the world's
And also,
baddest person.
to be honest, it seemed like at that time that anything negative that happened in the world was his fault.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my question was like, how many, even if we were to take all of this as like, oh yeah, it's 100% him. Bro, man must have just been out on a mission to fuck everything up.
Yeah.
The amount of shit he was quote unquote responsible for, it was just like, mans must have just been out there just like, fuck that, fuck
Yeah.
you, and fuck you.
Legit.
But my point is, like, people end up, and you know, maybe some of the things are true. I'm sure some of them are, some of them aren't. But my point is, you end up bringing this false perspective on the situation.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can quite literally look at look at the way the people are acting in America now across with Republicans and shit. I mean, like, you got Latifah, Antifa and shit. Like, they're always like seeming to go out and do some horrible shit, but not quite copping a whole lot of backlash. It's like, yeah, they're fighting fascism, but it's just like, at the same time, they're still doing some horrible shit to genuine people.
And I mean, look, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your message is. It doesn't change the effects your actions have on other people. But it's the same. And then you end up with these articles, and you're going to end up forming a relationship and doing like a view, not a relationship. Well, I guess sort of a relationship to a situation.
Because you take it on board. It's
and you're going to say things and do things that aren't in line with what's actually happening.
Yeah.
And that's going to cause more problems. And what's going to happen? You're going to end up with people that feel one way about it. Not even half the time, it's not even problems. Just about a situation that could have just been like over and done with if we were all just on the same page and we weren't being fed bullshit, and not just one type of bullshit, like 27 different stories on the same events. All it does is create more conflict.
Yeah.
And it's like, so when you view these things, yeah, they're free. Sure, the companies make money off of you for your time. But it doesn't cost just time. It's now costing more than time.
Yeah.
Well, it's costing more than the time you're spending on that. It's now costing the relationships you would have with other people.
Yeah, it's dividing. It's creating a line, and people are on one side and people on the other. And I mean, like, the more that different things come out, and people are gonna always like look at something and go, "Yep, I like that. I don't like that." But then when it's getting like used to pretty much weaponize itself to be like, fuck, we made a lot of people mad, let's just keep going. And that's the problem. I mean, like, there should be a line where you draw in the sand and go, okay, look, we brought it up. We're not going to be...
We've made enough money off of making you mad.
Yeah, we're not going to continue because we can actually see people are getting hurt.
Yeah.
But it's just like, did you see how much we made off that last one?
Yeah, let's just do it one more time.
And that's... I mean, like, that's the problem. I mean, like, there should be a line where it gets drawn. I mean, like, but there isn't being a line drawn, and the problem is that it's continuing to go and go and go, and it's no longer the culture being directed by... The culture is no longer driving itself anymore. It's being directed in the direction of, we're going to be your friend. So I'm going to throw the rock at you, but I'm also going to give you the shoulder to cry on.
Yeah. I'm gonna make you mad, but then also be like, well, if you stick to viewing me and keep opening my headlines and keep watching my ads, I'm gonna keep you up to date.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna keep you safe.
Yeah, exactly.
And all it does is it drives people further apart.
Yeah.
That's not helpful in any way. So what starts off as a simple headline to drag people in to get some money now becomes people now not getting along over simple issues because it's in someone else's best interest that they don't.
Yeah. Look at the COVID situation over here right now. I mean, like, the vaccination thing. I think, personally, I'm not against a vaccination, but I do think it's up to the individual to make the choice for themselves. I mean, like, they're making it mandatory. They're trying to make it mandatory, and the news is quite literally making it seem like people that aren't getting vaccinated are pure fucking evil.
Yeah.
I do not agree with that. For you to think that you know what's best for me doesn't prove that you are in any way, shape better than me, or I think that I'm better than you. It's just
Yeah.
that I'm making a decision for myself. I'm doing what I think's best for me. At this point, I mean, like...
But also, the problem with that I see is you have someone, let's say you want the person to get vaccinated. Well, do you think telling them that they're a piece of shit for not getting vaccinated is going to entice them to get vaccinated any more than they would have before? No. All it's going to do is turn them against people that are, and those that are against people that aren't. It's just causing conflict for no reason besides the fact that it gets people to listen.
Exactly. And that's the thing. There's no line being drawn.
Yeah. And
it's being weaponized. And that's the big problem because it's driving up their fucking revenue, but it's dividing people more and more and more.
And the problem is, like, it starts off with a simple waste of time. You read an article, the headline's pretty absurd, but you go off the headline because you don't have time to read the article. If you just read the article, then you probably wouldn't have formed the opinion you did. But it takes time to read the article. And, like, what was it? Fucking 59% of people share an article without reading it. I mean, that tells you right there that people just want to get the opinion out there without actually reading what's behind the opinion.
Yeah.
Or whether or not the opinion's even true.
Yeah, and then people that do only that actually go into reading the article, 55% of them are only reading it for 15 seconds before closing it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's over half.
But the funny thing is, though, at that point, the website doesn't, the people who make the website don't care at that point because you've opened it. They've got their ads out there. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
They've made their money. Now they can fuck right off. I mean, they did their job. You do whatever you want to do with that information. It doesn't affect them. In fact, if anything, it only helps them because you don't understand the situation properly, or you don't understand. It's not even that you don't understand the situation. It's just you don't understand the information presented in that article that may be one aspect of an entire situation. And then because of that, you read that and you form a slightly off observation. And then you see another article on the same situation. And you're like, oh, well, I have this opinion already formed on part of it, so I want to find out a bit more. So you read that headline, and then you're like, oh. So now you've built two observations on a situation which are both off. And if you just read the article, you'd find out that the funny thing is, though, it's kind of like a weird paradox because if you open the article and you'd read it, you probably wouldn't have opened the article if you knew what you know after reading it before you opened it. Like half the time you'll read an article and it'll be like, well, that was a waste of time.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a waste of time if you do it, and it's a waste of time if you don't do it, because the only thing that really offers any like substance.
You've already fell down the rabbit hole.
Yeah,
you're in there now. You may as well fucking go look for the Mad Hatter.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even, I was going to say the only thing that has substance, but the headline doesn't have substance.
Yeah.
It's just an over dramatization of what's actually happening.
Yeah.
It's just not. Yeah, I don't know. It just annoys me that you can, because, okay, different scenario. I'm studying for real estate. If I was to put up an ad for a house and it is misleading, deceiving in any way, shape, or form, I can have a charge put against me for that.
There's a pool out the back when there was actually just a puddle.
But the point is that and the thing is, the funny part is it's not up to whether or not I intended to deceive you or trick you. It's whether or not you felt you've been deceived or tricked.
Yeah. That's
what they'll count on. They don't care whether or not I tried to. They care whether or not you felt like you had been. And I can be fined for that. And that's selling a house. But then when it comes to telling important information about world events, or even just whether or not halloumi's allowed in the fucking country or not, the same rules don't apply. I can spin shit for the first paragraph and headline to get you really invested. And then like towards the end, I can tell you like what's actually happening and like what the actual explanation is. Because then at that point, I've got everything I needed out of you. I don't even care if you understand the situation at all. Like I really don't. And for me personally, I always thought it was just like a Hollywood thing. Like you saw all those like magazines that your mum would read or whatever, and they were all like big flashy words, like fucking big text, and is blah 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 cheating on blah blah blah, is blah 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 pregnant, and they were all like based on not even like not facts, like rumors at best, and some of them were just like blatant lies. And when it's in that context, it's not, look, I mean, it is an issue because it forms false opinions of people and it can give them bad reputations. But whether or not fucking Kendall Jenner's pregnant isn't going to change my worldview, you know?
Yeah.
It's not going to make me do things that I wouldn't have done otherwise.
Yeah.
Whereas when it starts spreading into politics, like social relations, in terms of like one's meaningful to the individuals within a community, or like science, like scientific facts, or just scientific studies, that's when it starts to cause problems. Because now it's like, well, what do I believe?
Yeah. And that's a problem. I mean, like, because of the success of what actually goes into advertisements and clickbaits and shit, people are more enticed to actually go that route. Because look at science. They're not really. There's not a whole lot that are funded, so that they kind of need some type of income to actually do the things that they want to do and continue studying and stuff. So I can understand that. But at the same time, I mean, like, the people that are writing about these scientific breakthroughs or what's happening in politics and shit is taking it too far. And I mean, like, the problem with that is that people, we're vulnerable. We're very vulnerable people. I mean, like, we quite literally take social issues as survival. I mean, like, that's how we've came so far, is that we've learned to live with one another and continue to grow with one another. It's been successful. So, I mean, like, when we read things and we take information in, it's just like, well, oh, yeah, this is interesting. Like, but the next problem with that is that we take it to the next person and go, oh, yeah, I've learned this about this and that. And it's just like, well, then that person has this idea of what you just said, and it's not even completely true.
Yeah,
So,
and then another problem is, say, for example, you go to that person, you say what you say, and they go, well, I heard the opposite.
Yeah.
And now you've got a conflict of what you both know. And now it's like, well, who's actually knows what's happening and who doesn't?
Yeah.
Or maybe you both technically know what's happening within your own minds.
Yeah.
Like in terms of how you see it, or in terms of what you've read. And that's another thing. Like, if I was to go through your social media, it would be completely different to mine. So we would see different headlines and we would form different opinions. And now times this by what? How many people are in Australia? Like 26 million? Times up at 26 million. Well, now we've got 26 million different opinions based on different facts, different headlines, different ideas. You're asking for conflict. You just are. And it's all because all of these individual things, all of these individual sites, whatever they are, all want a piece of the pie of our attention. So they've got to make the issues seem as extravagant as possible in order for me to be interested. I mean, if I see two headlines on the same issue and one just straight up tells me the boring ass facts, but another one tells me that if I don't read it, I'm in fucking danger because of the facts. Which one am I going to... I'm going to read the one that's like, you should fucking read this because, a big issue. Whereas the boring facts are just... They're just that. They're boring facts. Even though they tell me more accurately what's actually happening.
Yeah.
People read the other one because it's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And you don't pay for either of these at the time. You don't pay any money to view the story. But the site you go to does make money because you've viewed the ads. They've got their money. And now all they need to do is make another headline so you can repeat the process. And especially if they can kind of gather an audience that... I mean, it's like finding the audience that'll click the most. So if you can relate to a group of people and make them like really angry and really mad and want to find out about more shit that maybe isn't necessarily true, but gets them angry, gets their attention, well, then you're going to give them information and articles that are going to do that.
Yeah.
Because that's how you get the most attention out of them. And the more attention you give to them, I mean, your attention is the monetizable thing. That's how they make money, is your attention.
Yeah.
So the more attention you give them, the more money they get, the more they're going to want to continue that cycle to get more money.
Yeah.
Can I blame them?
No, I to be honest with you, I mean, like, I'm not mad that like this has been successful for companies and stuff. I mean, like, I look at it and these companies have made a shit ton of money. They've also given a lot of people jobs. So I'm not mad about that because it's helped a lot. It's done a lot, but it's also helped a lot. I think it also just comes down to the individual. I mean, like, you view those ads and it's up to you whether or not you wish to click on it. It is no one else's fault but yours. I think, it's just becoming a real problem now because the lack of information that actually goes into what they're clicking on doesn't hold a lot of validity for people to grow on.
Yeah, are you going to grow a person? Are you going to grow a view off of headlines?
No, absolutely not.
But people do.
Exactly. And that's the problem. I mean, like, the headline is personal. It's always made personal because if it wasn't, then it wouldn't actually draw a lot of the attention from the person reading it. I mean, like, I think when it comes to, I mean, like, you look at me, for example, about a year ago. I used to be very much like that. I'd just read the headline and I'd skim through the article a little bit, but like I wouldn't go into it. But to me, it felt like a personal attack, and I'd bring it to you and we'd try and talk about it, but I'd be like, no, fuck off. Yeah. I'm going to die in a year. But it's not until you actually, like, for example, like listening to and reading books and getting into the facts and why something has happened throughout the history, it's just like, this makes more sense.
But it also doesn't leave you sitting there going, it's like, you've just told
sometimes.
Me. I mean, yeah, sometimes. But like the whole point is that it's not something that's trying to catch your attention for 15 seconds, give you like a drive-by.
Yeah.
And then out of here, they've made the money, they've gotten your attention. You've formed your opinion off of a headline and maybe the first paragraph. And now you have an exaggerated view on an event or a certain thing. Compared to like reading books. No, books have got hundreds of pages of information. And it's enough information and backstory that you can view where this person is coming from, the information they're conveying it, and maybe why they're conveying it in the way they are.
Yeah.
So it's easier to find the information in its full form, B, figure out a bias of the writer if there is one, which, let's be honest, there usually always is, and C, kind of put it all together in a package and be like, okay, I have a pretty good understanding of what's going on here in terms of what this person's presenting, how they're presenting it, why they're presenting it, and what it means in terms of the situation. Whereas compared to an article, it's one page, couple paragraphs, usually talking about situations that are pretty fucking complex. And it's just... And then also adding on top of that the headline that's just tugging at you emotionally to be like, fuck. How is that helpful?
Fuck.
And you know what it is? It's literally the fast food of information. It's just not good for you.
Yeah.
And everyone's just fucking hogging that. And the thing is, like, it's understandable because a lot of the time when you have free time, it's only about like 5 minutes of free time before you do something else. Or like you're in between, say for example, you're on a break at work or something. The only thing you really have time for is to read that headline and to go, ooh, and then move on to the next one and go, ooh, move on to the next one. But I think the important thing is not to form an opinion that you're going to put your entire person behind off of a headline or a couple headlines. Like and that was the thing, like, what was it? There was a study shared by Adweek that found that 68% of people share posts to give a better sense of who they are and what they care about. Well, if you're putting out one-page articles and you want people to know who you are and what you care about off of one-page articles with a clickbait headline, I mean, you're building yourself off of junk food.
Yeah.
It's not healthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not going to be healthy for your opinions. And especially if someone else then sees that and it's completely opposite to something else they've seen, there's going to be immediate conflict.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not healthy in any way, shape, or form. But people are willing to post this and be like, no, this is who I am, and this is what I stand for. What, 3 paragraphs on a page and a clickbait headline? That's who you are, and that's what you stand for.
Yeah, it just the problem is when people start actually using that as where they stand socially or in their own opinion, then it just sort of creates like a maybe to some, but for me, when I see those types of things that people are standing by them, it's just like, well, okay, I'm going to need a little bit more information than that.
Yeah,
because you're coming off quite shallow right now. And I'm not trying to sound like an arsehole, but it's just I hear a lot of opinions coming forward, and it's just like, well, do you actually know why it's like that? It's just like small things, like opinions compared to facts. You might have it might be opinion based off the fact, but how it became a fact.
well, you don't even find out how it becomes a fact because that's not usually listed in the article.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, and also it's like, okay, let's say for example,
Actually, sorry, it's more or less how you can build a relationship around that fact, because it directs you in a way that you can build a relationship around that fact. It doesn't sort of. I mean, like especially when news outlets are trying to help build an opinion for that person that they share the same opinion, it's gonna be directed in a way for how you actually can get to that point. And I mean, like if you are constantly using this news source for information, then you're going to probably be more like the person that is writing the article. You might have a lot of, if you ever meet that person, you might just have a lot in common.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the ideas that you have and share are based off of what that person also thinks.
Yeah. Actually, that is a fair point. And it's also like the idea, like say for example, I mean, it's not good for you personally. You should never have too big of an ego. But it's like the idea, say for example, I thought halloumi was going to be banned from everywhere forever. And then I talk to someone about it and they go, no, it's not. And then they show me that it's not by reading the article that I thought I knew.
Sit down.
It's literally like me being called like, you're fucking stupid. Like that's not a good look for the individual.
Yeah.
Like, and then you're probably going to resent that person a little bit for a small amount of time. It's like you could have just avoided all that by reading the article, man, or just not believing the headline. Like a lot of the time, I think if you read the headline and you go, no fucking way, there's probably a good chance there is no fucking way. Like it most likely is wrong. Or
same sentence, just two different contexts.
Yeah. And that's it. It's like they haven't had that person hasn't had access to any more or less information than you. They've just read it. And
they've just interpreted it differently.
Yeah. And that's like, and the idea that like this says like to give people a better sense of who they are. I don't think you should be your ideas.
No.
I don't think an idea is a part of you.
And I think that is a really good idea, because when it actually comes down to separating yourself from your ideas, it is very, very hard.
But it's also extremely important.
Yeah, it's very important.
Because you got to understand, when someone comes to you with an idea that you don't agree with, they're not attacking you. In fact, half the time they're not even attacking the idea. They're just discussing. They're like, well, this is the idea that I have, and I want to compare it to your idea. I'm not comparing myself to you. I'm not trying to attack you. I'm trying to discuss ideas. Because if you were your ideas, that means every time you changed your opinion on an idea, that means you as an entire human being would change. Like people can have ideas that form and go and still be the same person. Therefore, it isn't a part of you. It's something you think, something you think about, but you lived before you had that idea, and you will live if you discard that idea. Therefore, that idea is not part of you. And I think that's a problem. Like, I think that can be a problem with some people. And I think that's the problem with some people. It's like, for example, it could be a controversial take. I've got no problem with vegans. Couldn't care if you were vegan, couldn't care if you couldn't. I'm not going to treat you any differently whether or not you're vegan. But some vegans, it isn't vegan. The idea of being vegan isn't the idea. It's a part of them. They make it a part of their entire being. And when they come to you and before they tell you their name, they say to you, I'm vegan. That's when I'm like, okay, now I kind of have an issue.
Yeah. It almost like seems like you only became vegan just so you had some social stance.
But my point is that person doesn't possess the idea possesses them.
Yeah.
And I think that's my point, is that a lot of people, when they have their ideas, the idea possesses them. They are subject to the idea isn't subject to them.
Yeah.
Like, you should be able to look at your own ideas and pull them apart and maybe find a way to disagree with them.
Yeah.
And that's a healthy thing. That's not a bad thing. When someone comes to you with an idea that you don't agree with, you shouldn't just lose your shit. You should be able to stand there and go, well, why is that person have that idea? And how can we talk about it?
And how can I learn from it as well?
And how can I learn from it? And how can they learn from me? And how can it not just become, you're attacking me? This idea is, it's like, the idea is not you. You and the idea are two very different things. And that's the problem with a lot of these headlines. You start forming your personality off of headlines, off of 2-sentence snippets that are over dramatized, are meant to pull at your emotions, and half the time are not accurate. And then if you come into other situations with that sort of mentality of being like, "Rrr," it's like, whoa, just calm down. Why can't we just have a conversation?
Yeah.
Like, you're so used to this short, intense burst of information that when it comes to talking about the information involved, it's just these short bursts of like, well, fuck you.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why don't we just have a conversation?
Yeah.
Why don't we discuss whether or not we have fucked up in the information we've consumed, or whether or not the information we consumed maybe it was correct, maybe it wasn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you a dumbass to have consumed information that wasn't correct. There's so many fucking sources of information out there. You're bound to fuck up, especially when they're all being blasted at your face via social media, via fucking Google, via every website you've ever seen, just so they can get your money. I mean, they quite literally want you to consume as much information as you can. It doesn't matter whether or not it's accurate, just consume it.
Yeah.
Why? Because it gives them the money they want. It gives them the money they need. And then they use that money to continue the process. I'm not even necessarily mad at the companies for doing it either, because, man's got to eat. But at the same time, the market's become so oversaturated that they've had to resort to the extremes in order to survive. And I think part of the problem is we as people haven't adapted as quick as the market's adapted to us.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. The market doesn't shape people. People shape the market. So if the market realizes that, hey, the more extreme I can make someone feel about this situation, the more they're going to want to pay attention and keep coming back, well, then I should invest in doing that.
Yeah.
And I think what we need to do is become less reactive to what we view and what we read.
I can agree with what you're saying. I think it also comes down to the individual as well. I mean, like I said before, for each and every individual, you might not actually know it, but it is quite literally survival in a social setting, especially when you're around people that you do not know. You quite literally source information in your mind that could render the idea of, hey, they're not so much of a bad person. I'm going to keep talking to them and get some more information. It makes the individual that is giving out that information feel a lot more comfortable. So it's in their best interest to put that information out and make themselves feel socially adequate. So, I mean, when something comes at you at such a personal level, you're bringing that information onto your being and you're projecting it out onto others to help you build that social ground. And like we've also discussed before, is that it was only like 15 years ago where there was quite literally only 10 channels on TV.
Yeah.
So I mean, like when we look at it now, there isn't 10 channels on TV. You have your own station.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's TV versus YouTube versus Facebook versus Instagram versus fucking every other versus podcasts. It's it's constantly like, you wouldn't have to, when it was 10 TV channels, you don't have to resort to going to extremes in order to get people's attention. You just
because you're all watching the same thing.
Yeah, you just need to make your channel interesting enough for people to watch.
Yeah.
Whereas now being interesting isn't enough. There's too many interesting things out there.
Yeah.
You've now got to get extreme and personal and emotional and get at people's feeling.
Yeah, I mean, like, you look at each and every social media platform, you begin your following, you begin bringing on new friends to your profile, and you upload your photos, and it becomes a personal thing. Your social media account isn't just a separate thing, it becomes a personal thing. It's a friend to you. So, I mean, like, it would be in the company, any social media company's best interest to continue building that relationship with the person that is using their product, to continue building that relationship. So, I mean, when that relationship is built, people over time don't notice the difference. And especially, like you said, is that there's just so much sources that there's only two things going on: the individual and the account. So when it comes to actually socializing, everyone is so, like, I'm not saying that everyone's divided, but I'm also saying that people aren't as close as what they used to be. I mean, like, more people there's probably people that aren't as inclined to say hello to someone on the street than what they would have been like 20 years ago. But today, there is a lot more relationship with technology at a personal level. So people are more weary of the outside world. So when they actually go out there and interact with others, it's like, this is something different from what I'm actually used to spending my time on.
Yeah, it's weird to think about, because just me saying this sounds odd, but what do you spend more time on or doing? Do you spend more time on social media, or do you spend more time talking to actual people?
Yeah, because that's the thing. I mean, like, it's quite literally just people sitting there. I mean, like, people do scroll. People do go sit on there for quite hours, and it's not like it's hard. It's quite easy, and it's just like when you're hanging out with friends. It's like, oh shit, it's been a few hours already. I gotta go.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, you've actually got this relationship with whatever's on your profile, because, and that's the thing. I mean, like, it was in the social media's best interest to build things like algorithms, because it continuously throws at the viewer what it wants to see. It knows you. It's built this idea around you, but at the same time, because the people are throwing these things at you to sell to you, it's also directing the way people see things.
But so also, those things have got to become more extreme for you to pick them.
Yeah, exactly.
If they say, look, this group of things, or this group of articles, or this group of whatever is suited to you, well, now it's up to those individual articles to fight over your time.
Yeah.
So not only has the article got to be personalized to you or be something that you care about, now it's going to be something that you care about that's emotionally high stakes enough for you to actually want to click it in the first place, or socially so, like, outrageous that you'll click on it. It can't just be relevant to you anymore. It's got to be relevant and over the top.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it starts to become a problem.
Yeah. So I think when we actually take in information, I think just being cautious. I mean, like, a good place to start to being cautious about taking on board the information that you are reading or currently seeking is to have a good moral stand ground. Understand that not everything that you read or hear is true, because most of the time, or actually majority of the time, the only things that you can consider true is what you've actually experienced.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
I mean, I like the idea that if I was you, born in your body, with your brain, went through your experiences and learnt the things you learnt, I'd be the exact same person.
Yeah.
I would be you. I wouldn't be a different person. So you got to keep that in mind. That person is the person they are because they were born the way they are, with the mind they are, went through the things they have and have read and looked and been involved with the things that they have. And therefore, that's why they think like that. They're not stupid. They've just formed opinions off of what they've experienced.
Yeah.
And this is the thing with there being so much. And it was a funny thing to point out because it's the idea that you do spend a fuck ton of time on social media. That is now time that you're being fed these headlines that you usually would have spent doing shit that didn't involve headlines. So not only now is it that we are coming across headlines that are more extreme, we're now spending more time being fed all of this.
Yeah.
And if everybody's social media feeds are different with different headlines, I'm surprised anyone gets along.
Yeah. When you make that point, it's actually quite good. I mean, like, that's a really good point because, I mean, the fact that everything is changing. I mean, like, there is points where, like, you see someone else and you're like, oh, did you see that? And I'm like, yeah, I did. So, I mean, like, we're all getting thrown the same bones and shit. But it's like, at the same time, it's just like, how much of that is actually, how much of what other things that you're seeing is being thrown back at them?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, take footy, for example. People actually build a big relationship around football. And they talk about the players, they talk about the umpires, they talk about the crowds, talk about other teams within football. There's like an actual big thing about it, and good for them. I think it's good because it actually helps people learn to get along quite a lot better, especially when they're on the same team.
Yeah, I was going to say, when they're on other teams, I don't know about that, buddy.
But the thing is, as well, is that when you're being fed so much more information on a scale of just you, and then other people are being fed information on their own scale with whatever it is that they wish to see. So there isn't like a lot of commonality between people, especially when they each have their own social media. Because I mean, like, if the one thing that they are, if the things that they are seeing pops up on their socials, but that's the only thing that you two have in common. I mean, like, how much can you build off of that in a conversation?
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's quite literally getting harder to actually have a conversation with people and share some common ground because, like you said, there is just so much other things that people are viewing, and football goes into depth. And I think that when it comes down to people building a relationship around football, it's not a bad thing because there's so much into it.
Yeah.
But when you've just got an article and that's the only thing that you have, or not even the article, we've just learnt that the article is not even the important part, but just the headline itself. What is it that you can actually build off of that? I mean, like, you might agree on the article. I mean, you might agree on the headline, but then you get to know one another and it's just like, wow, we don't have a whole lot in common.
Yeah.
So it's like, where is this commonality? Because what we're being shown, what you're being shown and what I'm being shown are two different things. The only thing that we've managed to see at the same time is the article or the headline.
Or even you could, and it could even, well, the thing is, it could be the same event, but you've seen different articles on the same event.
Yeah.
And therefore, those articles come from different angles or different biases or whatever. And so therefore, you both come into this conversation thinking you're talking about the same thing. And then when you start talking about each other, it turns out you don't understand where the other person is coming from because you're like, well, why are you bringing up that? Like, where's that information come from?
Yeah. Or,
oh, well, did you know about this? And it's like, you either get defensive because you take that as an attack. It's like, well, no, I don't know that, but like, well, fuck you sort of thing. Like, it's, or because it's just the idea that you're getting fed like tiny little bits of information and then building an opinion off of it and then going to other people who have been fed other parts of the same pie and have their own opinions. And then you're coming together and then nothing makes sense. Well, of course, like, it's just bound to be problems.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, the article for you to access it costs nothing. That social media app for you to get on it costs nothing. But there is a cost. You just don't pay it immediately.
Yeah.
At the same time, you don't pay that cost immediately. The website makes the profit immediately. So it's not... Like, that's another thing. If the website... I reckon if the website's only got paid if you read the full article...
They'd be broke.
They'd be broke. I was going to say either the articles would become super insightful or... and then I thought about it, actually, you know what would probably happen? The entire article would end up like the headline and just be this like dramatic mess of just bullshit.
We got to sell this shit quick and fast. We want that money.
Yeah. So, I think it's just important to realize that if you see an article, don't take it at face value.
Yeah.
Read into it a little bit and, don't believe everything you see on the internet. I think that's a pretty tried and true sentence. I mean, a lot of people see a lot of different things from a lot of different perspectives, and a lot of them are pretty extreme.
Yeah.
Some of them not so much, but some of them get pretty out of hand, and they just straight up lie to you or mislead you, or they'll tell you the truth, but not until the end of the end of the article. So I think, be careful with headlines. Don't base an opinion off of just a headline. And be mindful of others. If someone says to you, oh, well, I have this viewpoint, don't be like, well, how the fuck could you have that viewpoint? Blah, 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 blah. Like, it's okay to disagree with someone on something because they've obviously seen information, or maybe they've seen a lack of information in certain areas that you have or have not seen. And so they have a different opinion. And because I think the biggest problem of all of this, what ends up happening is you end up having conflict with other people that don't have the same opinion because you just don't understand how they couldn't have the same opinion as you. And you think that because they have X opinion, they have Y personality. And it's like, well, maybe they've just read different shit to you.
Yeah.
And I don't think you should be going judging someone's personality
Yeah, well, I mean, like, if that's the case, we're judging people's social media profiles more than we're actually judging them.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, when it comes to the individual making right decisions, I think it's good to actually take a break, pull back from whatever it is that you are doing, and look for something that can give you other meanings. I mean, like I said in the last episode, it's just like, if all you're doing is looking for friends, all you have to offer is just looking for friends when it comes to meeting friends. So you don't end up in this existential vacuum itself. Don't just feed into the rubbish that just continues to pop up, but actually feed into sort of reasonably good information, especially information that relates to you as a person. And most of the time, that's not even on social media. It's opening a book or listening to a book. We have plenty of sources now that you can actually just listen to books. Go out for a walk, go play with the dog, I don't know, do whatever you want, but just break away so that way you're able to spend some time with yourself and also build an opinion on how you base yourself in life. Because, I mean, like, if you're going to build your opinions just based off of articles and headlines and whatever other people are doing, you're going to build this misconception of reality, and everyone that enters it in the wrong way is going to be your enemy. And that's just not right, because at the current point in time, people aren't getting along as they used to. So I think that's pretty much it for me. I mean, like, I can't really get into too much more about the situation. All we know that is headlines are fucking misleading and a waste of time.
Pretty much. I do want to add a little bit on the end. I think because we were talking about nihilism in the last episode. I don't think these headlines help.
No.
Because it gets to a point where everything around you seems so extreme.
Yeah.
That it's like, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
And so I think, as well as everything we talked about in the last episode, I think this probably isn't helping either. Because it's just blasts of information that make you go, what the fuck? Like, what has the world come to? What's the point? Like, it's like you start viewing the world as like, well, it'd be better off if we just weren't here at all.
Yeah.
And so I really don't think this is helping either, especially like you've got the conflict, you've got the nihilism, you've got the misconceptions. It's just a recipe for disaster, really.
Yes. We're human beings, for fuck's sake. There's
I mean, look, we're all people. We're quite literally all just people.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, like, that's the best part, is that look at what we've done. We quite literally went, we're living under a hut, fucking struggling to get food, the water's dried up. You know what can we do with our time? And we've
gone from there to here.
We've literally just come to this situation where it's just like, yeah, I'm hungry, I'm going to the shops.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn the tap on because I'm thirsty.
But also China's banned all video games, so...
And that's your problem.
So yeah, I think just, being careful when going through social media and all those out there opinion pieces.
Yeah.
I mean, then again, you can almost view any opinion pieces being out there, and just taking, wait for it, self-responsibility.
Yeah.
Just being responsible for what you consume and realize that maybe it's not that good for you. Yeah. And if not, you can look at it. You can still consume it. I'm not going to tell you not to. You still consume it.
But just know there's a risk.
But yeah, just know that there's a risk to it and that you should step back and look at it and be like, okay, was this 100% true? Probably not. So look at it that way. Just be mindful.
Yeah. And also just want to let our listeners know that if they have any ideas for topics that they want to hear or listen to us dribble shit about, send us a message. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow.
Yep.
We really appreciate that. We've got some stickers on the way as well.
Yes.
So anyone that wants a sticker, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.